No species, not even humans, can survive the relentless brutality of Dryaxis 7, Professor Zaltar declared, his voice a crescendo of certainty that echoed through the grand amphitheater. Your primitive tools, your so-called ingenuity, it all crumbles under the planet's unforgiving sun. The words hung in the air, a gauntlet thrown to the class of intergalactic students seated in concentric rings. Beings of various shapes and sizes, tentacled, scaled, and humanoid, leaned forward in curiosity. The famed professor's pronouncements were rarely challenged. He was a legend in survival theory, his reputation bolstered by decades of research across hostile worlds. But today, someone dared. Humans thrive where others falter, a voice interrupted, clear and steady. All eyes turned to Maria Keller, the lone human in the room, her piercing blue gaze fixed on the professor. She sat upright, her military posture honed from years of service in Earth's Expeditionary Corps. Give us a chance, and we'll show you what primitive can achieve. A murmur rippled through the class. Some students exchanged amused glances, their iridescent eyes flickering in disbelief. A tall, reptilian student named Kratzis hissed softly, his scales shimmering in the room's ambient light. Bold words from a species that only recently discovered faster-than-light travel. Maria ignored him. Her focus remained on Professor Zaltar, who regarded her with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. His elongated, crystalline fingers tapped rhythmically on the podium. You propose to test my thesis? Zaltar asked, his translucent, violet-hued face unreadable. You would willingly subject yourself to Dryaxis 7, a planet where the atmosphere itself conspires to extinguish life? Maria nodded. Yes. And not just me, a small team, adhering to your conditions. Primitive tools, no advanced technology. We'll survive and find water. The amphitheater erupted in a cacophony of laughter, jeers, and incredulous chatter. Zaltar raised a hand to silence them. Very well, he said, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade. You will have your chance. But let me be clear, Dryaxis 7 is not merely a desert. It is a tomb for ambition. Many civilizations have tried to tame it, and all have failed. Then it's about time someone succeeded, Maria replied, her tone defiant. Zaltar's crystalline form shimmered as he stepped down from the podium. You will leave in 2 planetary cycles. Bring no more than 4 individuals. And remember, Lieutenant Keller, hubris has been the downfall of many who thought themselves exceptional. Maria rose, her figure dwarfed by the amphitheater's towering arches. It's not hubris, Professor, she said, her voice carrying a quiet determination. It's human nature. The challenge was formalized quickly, the details transmitted to Maria's datapad as the class dispersed. She walked through the corridors of the academy, her boots clicking against the smooth obsidian floors. Her mind raced with possibilities and preparations. She needed a team, people who could think on their feet, who wouldn't crack under pressure. By the time she reached her quarters, Maria had already drafted her list. Dr. Eliza Tran, a biologist with expertise in arid ecosystems. Sergeant Liam Reyes, an engineer with a knack for improvisation. And Corporal Danny Malik, a survivalist who'd grown up in Earth's harshest deserts. As she sent the invitations, her gaze shifted to the window. Beyond the shimmering force field, the academy floated in the void, a marvel of architecture suspended above the gas giant Vorexis Prime. Somewhere out there, Dryaxis 7 awaited, its challenges cloaked in mystery. Maria clenched her fists. This wasn't just about proving Zaltar wrong. It was about showcasing the resilience of humanity in the face of insurmountable odds. 2 days later, as she stood on the departure deck with her team assembled, Zaltar appeared. He handed her a data chip containing the planet's coordinates. Good luck, Lieutenant, he said, his tone devoid of sincerity. You'll need it. Maria pocketed the chip and met his gaze. Luck's never been our strategy, Professor. Adaptation is. As their ship launched into the void, Maria allowed herself a rare smile. Dryaxis 7 didn't know what was coming. The descent onto Dryaxis 7 was unlike anything Maria Keller had ever experienced. Through the reinforced viewport of their shuttle, she watched the planet unfold, a vast, windswept expanse of ochre dunes stretching to the horizon. Blistering winds swirled columns of fine, metallic sand into the atmosphere, giving the sky a hazy bronze hue. The sun, an enormous, unforgiving orb, hung low and heavy in the sky, radiating heat so intense it distorted the air. "Atmosphere scan complete," Sergeant Liam Reyes reported from the console. His voice was steady, but the tension in his jaw betrayed unease. Temperature, 54 degrees Celsius and climbing. Humidity, negligible. Oxygen, thin but breathable. Conditions are hostile. Hostile is an understatement, Dr. Eliza Tran murmured, her eyes fixed on her tablet. This level of UV radiation alone could cook us alive if we're not careful. "Good thing we're not here to sunbathe," Maria said, her tone clipped. She turned to the survivalist, Corporal Danny Malik, who was seated near the equipment crates. "Gear check?" "All accounted for," Malik replied, his voice carrying a hint of dry humor. "Primitive tools only, per the professor's rules. Solar stills, digging spades, filtration kits, and good old human ingenuity." Maria nodded. "Good. Let's prove him wrong." The shuttle landed with a jarring thud, the impact kicking up a swirling cloud of sand that battered the hull. The team donned lightweight desert suits designed to reflect heat and repel the abrasive particles. As the hatch hissed open, a wall of scorching air hit them like a physical force. Each step onto the shifting sands was a battle for balance. The landscape was eerily silent, broken only by the low whistle of the wind. The dunes were punctuated by jagged outcroppings of blackened rock, remnants of volcanic activity from eons past. "Welcome to paradise," Malik muttered, shielding his eyes against the glare. Maria activated her wrist-mounted scanner and surveyed their surroundings. Priority 1, shelter. Priority 2, water. Let's move. By midday, the team had set up a rudimentary camp in the shadow of a basalt cliff. The heat was oppressive, even with the suits, and every movement felt like wading through syrup. Maria knelt in the sand, sketching a rough map based on their scans. "There's something odd about the subsoil here," Eliza said, crouching nearby with a sample tube. "It's porous, almost like a sponge. It might explain why previous expeditions thought there was no water, anything on the surface would evaporate almost instantly." "Or it's hiding just beneath," Maria said, hope flickering in her voice. She turned to Reyes. "Thoughts?" "If there's moisture down there, we'll need to dig deep," Reyes replied, squinting at the terrain. "The solar stills might help us capture enough to analyze, but it won't be fast." Maria straightened. "Then we start now. We don't have the luxury of waiting." Hours passed as the team worked in grueling conditions, digging trenches and setting up solar stills. Each motion sent beads of sweat rolling down their faces, despite the suit's cooling systems. Malik, his hands blistered from the spade, paused to wipe his brow. "You think the professor's watching?" he asked, gesturing to the sky. Maria glanced up, knowing that the alien observers were monitoring them from orbit. "Let them watch. They'll see what determination looks like." As the sun dipped toward the horizon, the first solar still began to yield results, a faint trickle of condensation collecting in the catch basin. Eliza's eyes widened as she tested it with a portable sensor. "Water," she confirmed, her voice trembling with a mix of disbelief and triumph. "It's not much, but it's here." Maria exhaled, a wave of relief washing over her. "It's a start. And it proves the professor wrong." But the moment of victory was short-lived. A low rumble echoed across the dunes, growing louder with each passing second. The team froze, exchanging tense glances. "What the hell is that?" Malik asked, his hand instinctively moving to his survival knife. The ground beneath them trembled, sending ripples through the sand. Maria tightened her grip on her scanner, her jaw set. "Everyone, back to camp," she ordered. "Now." As they scrambled toward the safety of the cliff, the rumble intensified, and a massive shadow swept over the dunes. The source remained unseen, hidden by the swirling sands, but the message was clear: Dryaxis 7 was not as empty as it seemed. For the first time, Maria felt the weight of the professor's warning. This planet was a tomb, but not just for ambition. The rumble persisted through the night, a low, menacing growl that seemed to emanate from the very bones of Dryaxis 7. Inside the fragile safety of their camp, Maria Keller paced restlessly, her shadow cast long against the flickering light of their camp lantern. Each step she took stirred fine particles of sand, a constant reminder of the unforgiving environment beyond the basalt cliffs. "Whatever's out there, it's big," Malik said, his voice low as he sharpened the edge of his survival knife. He sat cross-legged on a flat rock, the tension in his posture mirroring the unease that gripped the team. "And it doesn't sound friendly." "We can't afford to waste energy on panic," Maria replied sharply. Her eyes moved to Sergeant Reyes, who was examining their solar stills. "Status?" "The stills are holding up," Reyes reported. "The yield is small, but it's consistent. We'll need to expand our setup if we want to stay ahead of dehydration." Dr. Eliza Tran, crouched beside a makeshift workbench, nodded in agreement. "The soil here is oddly structured. It's almost like it's designed to retain just enough moisture to survive. If we can dig deeper and expose more surface area, we might tap into a larger reservoir." Maria glanced at the horizon, where the first pale light of dawn painted the dunes in hues of gold and crimson. The rumbling had ceased, but the silence that replaced it was no less unsettling. Whatever was out there, it had retreated, for now. "Then we work quickly," Maria said. "Reyes, Malik, expand the trenches and set up additional stills. Eliza, focus on analyzing that water. I want to know what we're drinking." "And what might be drinking us," Malik muttered, earning a sharp look from Maria. The morning passed in a blur of intense labor. Malik and Reyes took turns digging, their movements rhythmic and purposeful despite the punishing heat. Maria joined them, wielding a spade with the precision of someone who had endured harsher conditions in Earth's deserts. The team worked with the quiet efficiency of those who understood that every second mattered. By midday, their efforts bore fruit. A second solar still began to collect water, its clear droplets shimmering like jewels in the relentless sunlight. Maria crouched beside it, her fingers brushing the edge of the catch basin. "This is what Zaltar doesn't understand," she said, half to herself. "Survival isn't about brute force or advanced technology. It's about adaptability." Reyes paused to wipe sweat from his brow, his face streaked with dirt. "He'll understand soon enough. If we make it." Maria didn't respond. Her focus was on the distant dunes, where faint ripples in the sand hinted at unseen movement. The rumbling from the night before lingered in her mind, an unspoken threat that gnawed at her resolve. As the sun began its descent, Eliza's voice broke the tense silence. "Maria, you need to see this." The team gathered around Eliza's workstation, where a small vial of water rested on a portable analyzer. The biologist's expression was a mix of fascination and concern. "This water isn't just moisture," she said, gesturing to the holographic display above the analyzer. "It's laced with trace elements of an unknown mineral. It's not harmful, at least not immediately, but it's reactive." "Reactive how?" Maria asked, her tone sharp. Eliza hesitated. "It interacts with organic compounds in a way I've never seen. It could be why the planet's ecosystem is so unstable. It might even explain the seismic activity we've been hearing." Maria's mind raced. This discovery was significant, but it complicated an already precarious situation. If the water was chemically unique, it could attract more than just academic interest. It could make Dryaxis 7 a target for less scrupulous factions. Before she could speak, a low rumble shook the ground beneath them. This time, it was closer, much closer. "Here we go again," Malik said, grabbing his knife and rising to his feet. "Everyone stay sharp." The team braced as the source of the sound finally revealed itself. From the dunes emerged a massive, insectoid creature, its carapace shimmering like liquid metal. Multi-jointed legs moved with eerie precision, and its elongated mandibles clicked rhythmically, emitting an alien hum that vibrated through the air. Maria stepped forward, her spade gripped tightly in her hands. "No one panic," she said, her voice steady despite the fear twisting in her chest. "It's assessing us. We hold our ground." The creature stopped, its reflective eyes scanning the camp. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Then, with a sudden, jerking motion, it turned and retreated into the dunes, leaving a trail of disturbed sand in its wake. "What the hell was that?" Reyes asked, his voice breaking the silence. Something we weren't meant to see, Maria replied, her gaze fixed on the horizon. But now it knows we're here, and it's only a matter of time before it returns. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Maria tightened her grip on the spade. This wasn't just a test of survival anymore. Dryaxis 7 was alive, and it had noticed them. The air hung heavy with anticipation as twilight deepened, painting the dunes in deep crimson and violet hues. The eerie stillness was broken only by the faint whistle of the wind, a prelude to the chaos brewing on the horizon. Maria Keller stood at the edge of the camp, her eyes locked on the distant, roiling wall of sand that seemed to devour the horizon. "Storm's moving faster than I thought," Reyes reported, his voice tight as he adjusted the solar stills to secure them. "We've got maybe 30 minutes before it's on us." "Make it 20, Eliza corrected, glancing at her tablet. "Wind speeds are increasing exponentially. This isn't a normal storm, it's more like a planetary tantrum." Maria turned to the team, her expression unreadable. "We've faced worse. Focus on the essentials, secure the camp, protect the water, and make sure no one gets buried alive. Malik, start reinforcing the shelters. Reyes, double-check the stills. Eliza, get the samples inside." "And you?" Malik asked, already gathering tools. "I'll make sure nothing critical gets left behind," Maria replied. Her voice was calm, but her mind raced with calculations. They couldn't afford to lose their fragile progress to Dryaxis 7's wrath. The storm struck with a ferocity that defied expectation. The first gusts of wind tore through the camp, flinging loose sand against their suits with enough force to sting. Visibility dropped to near zero as the air turned into a swirling maelstrom of grit and heat. Maria crouched inside the central shelter, her hand gripping a tether secured to the reinforced frame. "Still holding?" she shouted over the howling wind. "Barely." Reyes called back, his voice muffled by the comms. He was outside, braving the chaos to anchor the solar stills. "One of the basins is cracking. We'll lose it if the wind picks up any more." "Do what you can," Maria ordered. She turned to Eliza, who was huddled over the analyzer. "Status on the samples?" "Safe for now," Eliza replied, her tone clipped as she worked to seal the containers. "But if we lose power, the cooling units won't hold." Maria's jaw tightened. The storm was testing every inch of their resilience, and Dryaxis 7 wasn't letting up. Outside, Malik wrestled with the makeshift wind barriers, his muscles straining as he fought against the relentless force. Each movement was calculated, driven by the knowledge that one misstep could cost them everything. He drove the final stake into the ground and activated the anchors, securing the barrier just as a powerful gust threatened to rip it away. "Done," he shouted into his comm heading back. He stumbled toward the shelter, the wind nearly knocking him off his feet. Just as he reached the entrance, a deafening crack echoed through the storm. A section of the basalt cliff above the camp had fractured, sending a cascade of debris tumbling down. "Rockslide!" Malik bellowed, diving inside just as the first boulders slammed into the ground nearby. Inside the shelter, the team regrouped, their breathing heavy as the storm raged around them. The structure creaked under the strain, but it held firm. Maria's voice cut through the tension. "Status check. Everyone okay?" "Bruised, but alive," Malik said, wiping sand from his visor. "Water collection is down to one basin," Reyes added, shaking his head. "The rest are either damaged or buried." "The samples are intact," Eliza reported, though her tone was grim. "But we've lost power to the analyzer." Maria exhaled slowly. The situation was precarious, but they had survived the worst of the storm. For now. By dawn, the winds had subsided, leaving the camp half buried in a sea of sand. The team emerged from the shelter, exhausted but determined. The landscape around them was unrecognizable, the dunes reshaped into jagged peaks and deep troughs. The shattered remains of their equipment littered the ground. Maria surveyed the damage, her expression hardened but resolute. "We regroup, rebuild, and adapt. This planet won't beat us." Reyes crouched beside one of the broken stills, running his hand over the cracked surface. "We'll need to salvage what we can." "Eliza," Maria said, turning to the biologist, "focus on analyzing that water. If it's reactive, there might be a way to use it to our advantage." And the thing that was out there before the storm? Malik asked, his voice edged with unease. Maria's gaze shifted to the distant dunes. The storm had obscured their tracks, but she knew the creature hadn't forgotten them. It's still out there. And now it knows we're vulnerable. She tightened her grip on her spade. Dryaxis 7 had thrown its worst at them, but Maria and her team weren't finished. If the planet wanted to fight, it would learn that humans didn't just endure, they thrived. The morning after the storm was eerily still, the silence amplifying every movement and breath. Dryaxis 7's relentless sun rose over a reshaped landscape, casting jagged shadows across the newly formed dunes. Maria Keller stood at the edge of camp, scanning the horizon for signs of movement. The massive creature they'd encountered before the storm haunted her thoughts. It was out there somewhere, and it knew they were here. We need to move, she said, breaking the silence. That storm didn't just bury our camp, it might have uncovered something useful. Or something dangerous, Malik muttered, tightening the straps of his gear. Maria ignored the comment and turned to Dr. Eliza Tran, who was hunched over a datapad. Eliza, you've been studying the water samples. Any breakthroughs? Eliza glanced up, her expression both excited and apprehensive. The water is definitely reactive. It has trace amounts of a mineral compound I can't fully identify, but it seems to interact with organic materials in unpredictable ways. It might be why this planet's ecosystem is so unstable. What kind of interactions? Reyes asked, his brow furrowed. It's hard to say without more data, Eliza admitted. But if this compound exists in large quantities underground, it could explain why previous attempts to colonize this planet failed. Maria considered this. If the compound was dangerous, it posed a significant challenge. But if it could be controlled, or weaponized, it might also hold the key to their survival. We'll dig deeper, she said. If this compound is the planet's secret, we need to understand it. The team spent hours excavating near the camp, using their primitive tools to clear sand and debris. The work was grueling, the heat oppressive, but Maria pushed them forward with unwavering determination. By mid-afternoon, Reyes struck something solid. Got something, he called out, his voice echoing across the dunes. The team gathered around as Reyes unearthed the edge of a metallic structure. The material was unlike anything they had seen before, smooth, iridescent, and humming faintly with energy. This doesn't look natural, Eliza said, crouching to examine the surface. It's some kind of alloy, but I've never seen anything like it. Alien ruins, Malik said, his voice tinged with awe. We're not the first ones here. No, we're not, Maria said. But we might be the first to find out what happened to them. They worked together to uncover more of the structure, revealing what appeared to be an entrance sealed by a heavy door. Strange symbols were etched into the metal, their meanings lost to time. Think you can open it? Maria asked Reyes. Reyes nodded, pulling out a crowbar. Primitive tools only, right? Let's see if old-fashioned leverage does the trick. With Malik's help, Reyes pried the door open, revealing a dark passage that descended into the ground. A faint, acrid smell wafted out, and the air inside felt cooler than the surface. Maria switched on her suit's light. Stay sharp. We don't know what's down there. The descent was slow and cautious. The passageway was lined with intricate carvings that glowed faintly when touched, illuminating their path. Eliza ran her fingers over the symbols, her expression a mixture of curiosity and dread. These carvings depict some kind of life cycle, she said, pointing to a sequence of panels. It starts with abundance, then collapse. Over and over again. It's a warning, Malik said, his voice low. Whatever's down here, it's not friendly. At the end of the corridor, they entered a vast chamber filled with towering crystalline structures. In the center was a pedestal holding a device that pulsed with dim, rhythmic light. Is that a power source? Reyes asked, stepping closer. More than that, Eliza said, examining it. This device is emitting faint traces of the same compound we found in the water. It's some kind of stabilizer, maybe even a containment unit. Maria frowned. Containment for what? Before Eliza could answer, the ground trembled. A deep, resonant hum filled the chamber, and the crystalline structures began to glow brighter. The team froze as a low, guttural growl echoed from the shadows. "It's waking up," Malik whispered, his hand moving to his knife. Maria stepped forward, her voice steady. "Whatever's here, it's tied to this planet's instability. If we can figure out how to control it, we might have a chance." The growl intensified, and from the darkness emerged the same massive, insectoid creature they had seen before. Its reflective carapace shimmered like liquid metal, and its eyes glowed with an unnatural light. It moved with deliberate, calculated precision, its mandibles clicking rhythmically. Maria raised her spade, her grip firm. "Hold your ground," she ordered. "We're not running." The creature stopped, tilting its head as if steadying them. The hum of the device grew louder, and the chamber seemed to pulse in time with the vibrations. "Maria," Eliza said urgently, "that device, it's connected to the creature. I think it's some kind of symbiotic relationship. If we tamper with it, we might trigger something worse," Maria finished grimly. The creature took a step closer, and the team braced for a fight. But instead of attacking, it emitted a low, resonant sound that reverberated through their bones. It wasn't a threat, it was a message. Maria tightened her grip on the spade and took a cautious step forward. "Let's find out what it wants." The chamber thrummed with a low, pulsating energy, the glow from the crystalline structures casting an eerie light on the massive insectoid creature before them. Maria Keller stood firm, her spade clutched tightly in her hands, her team behind her. The creature's reflective carapace shimmered, its alien eyes locked on hers. "It's not attacking," Malik said, his voice tense but steady. "Why isn't it attacking?" "Because it's curious," Maria replied. "And maybe it doesn't see us as a threat." "Not yet." The creature emitted another deep, resonant hum, a sound that seemed to vibrate through the very walls of the chamber. The crystalline structures responded, their glow intensifying and shifting in color, as if the entire room was alive and reacting to the exchange. Eliza Tran stepped forward cautiously, her eyes fixed on the crystalline pedestal at the center of the chamber. The creature isn't just connected to the environment, it is the environment. This isn't just a life form, it's part of an ecosystem that relies on this compound to function. Maria's gaze shifted between the creature and the glowing pedestal. "So it's protecting this place, this planet. But what's it trying to tell us?" The hum grew louder, the vibration stronger. The creature lowered its massive head, almost bowing toward the pedestal. Then, with a deliberate motion, it extended one of its multi-jointed limbs and tapped a specific crystal on the pedestal. A holographic display erupted from the device, filling the chamber with an array of alien symbols and images. Eliza's jaw dropped. This is a record. A history of the planet. The holograms showed scenes of abundance, lush, green landscapes teeming with life. Then came the collapse. The once thriving ecosystem was consumed by storms, the planet stripped to barren desert. Each time, the same glowing compound appeared, spreading through the environment like a virus. "It's a cycle," Eliza said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The compound sustains life for a time, but it eventually destabilizes the ecosystem. The creatures, like this one, are designed to manage it, to keep the balance. But something always goes wrong. Why would it show us this?" Reyes asked, his hand hovering near his toolkit. "What does it want?" Maria steadied the creature, her instincts telling her it wasn't an act of hostility. "It's not just showing us what went wrong, it's asking for help." The holograms shifted, now showing symbols and patterns that seemed to mimic the team's recent activities. The solar stills, the digging, the careful preservation of water, it was as if the creature and the planet itself were acknowledging their methods. Maria stepped forward, placing her spade gently on the ground as a gesture of peace. "You've seen what we can do," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Humans are survivors. We adapt. If you need help restoring balance, we're your best chance." The creature tilted its massive head, the alien light in its eyes flickering. It emitted a softer hum, almost melodic, and the crystals dimmed slightly. The chamber fell silent. "I think it's agreeing," Eliza said, her voice trembling with a mix of awe and fear. "But we'll need to act fast. This compound is volatile. If we don't stabilize it, the planet might not survive another cycle." The team sprang into action. Reyes and Malik began dismantling parts of the damaged solar stills, repurposing them into makeshift containment units. Eliza worked feverishly to analyze the compound's properties, using every scrap of data they had gathered. Maria directed the efforts, keeping one eye on the creature, which watched their progress with unblinking intensity. As they worked, the chamber began to shake. The planet itself seemed to resist their interference, as if testing their resolve. "Keep going," Maria shouted over the rumble. "We've come too far to stop now." Reyes connected the final piece of the containment unit, and Eliza input a series of adjustments into the pedestal's interface. The glowing compound within the chamber dimmed, its volatile energy now channeled into the device. The tremors ceased. The chamber's light softened, and the creature let out a low, resonant sound that vibrated through the air. It wasn't a warning this time, it was gratitude. As the team emerged from the ruins, the harsh sunlight of Dryaxis 7 greeted them. The landscape was still barren, but something felt different. The oppressive weight of the planet's instability seemed to have lifted, if only slightly. "Did we fix it?" Malik asked, squinting at the horizon. "We stabilized it," Eliza replied, her expression cautious. "For now. The planet will need constant care to maintain balance." Maria looked back at the entrance to the ruins, where the creature stood, watching them silently. "Then we've done our part. The rest is up to them." As they prepared to leave, a faint hum echoed across the dunes, a sound that carried both warning and hope. Dryaxis 7 wasn't just a planet of death and despair. It was alive, waiting for someone to understand it. Maria climbed aboard the shuttle, her mind racing with possibilities. The data they had collected, the lessons they had learned, this wasn't just about survival. It was about redefining what it meant to coexist with a world that seemed uninhabitable. As the shuttle ascended into the atmosphere, Maria allowed herself a rare smile. Humanity had done what no other species could. They hadn't conquered Dryaxis 7, they had earned its trust.